Hey, what's up? I'm just tapping in with a quick video, and sometimes you got to do something a little bit new to get a different result. So I'm actually gonna let this rock out while I'm driving, um, just because so I want to say one is that I want to put a disclaimer that I'm fully trained to talk while I'm driving, just because I'm a school bus driver, and so I'm used to having like anywhere from like up to 70 elementary students on my hands at a time, if not elementary and middle school or high school, or middle school and high school, or extracurricular activities of high school. So I'm used to having a lot of conversations going on at the same time while I'm driving, like in that case, like a big old commercial vehicle in traffic. But that's not to make light of of that type of thing, because in that line of work specifically, if you're having anything to do with the smartphone or with electronic device while driving, other than the radio, your ass is out of somewhere. So it's very serious, because like even like I'm driving at night now, and if you were to run your mouth this and that, or worry about this and that, you got people walking at night, you got people chilling, riding bikes, stuff like that. So it's always very. Um, Sometimes people don't appreciate that when you're on the road, even as a pedestrian, you have lives in your hands. Because if you did something, like if you're playing with the phone, or you're not paying attention, even as you're walking, that can cause a vehicle to have to swerve. That vehicle could be conveying a family, or could potentially cross the path of a vehicle that's conveying a family, if not a commercial vehicle that's conveying students. So anything we do, the roads are real at all times. Whatever you do for life, wherever you got to be somewhere, to set foot on the road is real. But I do honestly mean that, as one of the things that certain lines of work really, they change you, but they also bring out some of your propensities. There can be redeeming qualities, and also detrimental qualities of different things that people do for work. And one that I found is, as a CDL for me, as a school bus and then metro driver, but more so school bus. It brings out some of your social capacity. When I was originally wanted to be a over the road class A CDL driver. I had some aspirations about it. I was a delivery driver for a long time, and one of my real veteran big dog managers that gave me a lot of seasoning in life. He had played with thoughts about being a CDO back in the day. He made a couple references to that, and it stuck out to me. But then during the pandemic, there was like every once in a while, the actual administrator of the damn matrix will have to show their face because things get bad enough. So like, you didn't know that there's a lot of good work in CDO back in the day, and it was probably like it was, you would have had to have some, just a little bit of an insider privy to a way to get on as a CDO. But then in the time of the pandemic, they were like showing their hand, and they're coming out from the back of the matrix, like, hey, yeah, so if anybody's willing to help out with the CDL stuff, but we got the jobs and stuff, man, it's good to go like that, because we're trying to make the supply chain work. So then I actually did like some of these long applications during the pandemic for like some of these. They have like different ways you can become a. There's different ways to do things, including become a CDO. Some of them are to your strong suit, some are not. You would have like a few major CDL companies like that would train people from scratch, that would give people an opportunity. But then there would be a little bit of a balance that a person would owe to do it that way. um, and so I was going on my way to do something like that, and then on the way there, the bus that took us there, I don't know if it was a little bit underhanded, but the driver was he proceeded to knowing that he had a bunch of a load of CDL students on their way to the middle of nowhere to learn how to drive trucks. He availed himself to recruit us to that it might actually be sweeter to be a over the road bus driver, as in like interstate bus driver, because they get like put up in hotels. And he was saying that like it's actually sweet like that. Is what he was saying is that you get put up in hotels and you get the bonuses. And it also, it's a little bit better because you're not all sweaty. You're not like you're not all up. You have more mystery in your relationships. What he was saying is because you're having the money, but then you're also having mystery in your relationships because you're not all up under somebody that you're dating. He was proceeding to tell us, and then and then while he got done telling us that it was that sweet, right before we got to our destination on the highway, the damn wheel popped on the 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 bus. So we were less than 10 miles away from our destination, coming like a quarter of the way across the country, and then going down a grade. The damn tire, at least two tandem tires on a Greyhound, I think, bus like that. And he was like trying to be cool about it, but our ass was about to die, including him driving. He was trying to be cool about it, but he actually did get us there safely. But when I took that trip, there had been a couple of things that like one is that I met a brother. Like I was leaving from where I was at Twin Cities, and the I was the first person to show up to the terminal like in the morning. And there's another guy there. Like sometimes when you get onto like certain things where you're about to change your life, but it's also like challenging and like some dangerous shit. You'll meet somebody that they're really sturdy in life. Like they know they're savvy enough in life to have recognized the same opportunity and be up to the same thing that you're up to, but they actually looked more into it as they look into more things deeply before getting into them. So you can just come across some really sturdy people that know what you're up against and what you're getting yourself into. And you meet them right off a jump street like that. So I met this dude like that on the way to training because he knew my ass there that time of morning, that day of the week, on a bus somewhere. He knew I had to be going to that same destination. But he was a big guy. Like he was both muscular and over. He was a little bit, you could say, overweight, but he wasn't overweight for him. Like that weight actually worked for him, and he was like that. You could tell that was actually maybe even a healthy weight for his lifestyle. Because like we think our ass is supposed to live forever, 80, 90 years old, this and that. But a lot of things in nature, they just kind of serve a function, and it's like it is. I don't know. I'm not. When it's nobody wants the clock to be up. Everybody wants to live a long. I wish myself and anyone living this live long and prosper. But an authentic life, a quality life, is not necessarily over this. It is not necessarily correlated to the duration of life, and neither also is wisdom and learning because a lot of it's about choice. So I would say that maybe quality of life is about the totality of experience. Is that experiences that are consummated and in total, such as to move beyond them. That's actually the way to move beyond life is to make life total. So having total experiences. I read a book about it's a book called Ethical Slut, and I don't mean to be vulgar with this, but it's about like different life. It's actually just a honest conversation about like dating and lifestyles in the modern era. Just a simple conversation about that from people that I guess they got around or they were swingers at one point. They were women, but they're saying that with their approach to dating is just to be total about it, like to really go all in about that, about dating. To each their own cup of tea, cup of poison, because life is poison. But I'm not so. But I think that that's the metric of a quality of life is how total of life it is. Not how sweet it is, how plush it is, how posh it is, how extravagant it is, but just how total and thoroughgoing, such as to move past it. Because that would be regrettable. I watched something about. I was listening to Osho, and he was talking about. There was a professor, a successful academic person, that was about to pass on, and at that person's last, like at their actual bed of their deathbed, actually, he was saying that uh, don't worry because you're not about to die. He's like, what? That's what the doctor said. He said, no, you can't actually die because you didn't fully live like that. You weren't living that the way like that. And then he was like, damn, you know what? If you didn't say that, man, I might not actually got to die either. I missed my life by being by being the way he was living. He didn't live his true feeling, what he would like to do and be. But he also wouldn't have got to pass on unless he had that much of a sober statement like that, even if something that might sting like that. But from that line of thought is that the one of the purposes of life is to move beyond life, but that's to have thoroughgoing full experiences, and it's not necessarily over that it takes that many duration of iterations of years to do that. Um, so uh, so from that standpoint, a healthy weight for you doesn't have to be a weight that's going to have you live forever, but just to be yourself, your lifestyle, to be functional, healthy at your. According to Osho, there's no such thing as true as health as an ideal, because that also wouldn't be health, because you need a buoyancy of health and detriment of like you have like probiotics. You might also have proviruses, things that are a perfect. You have different viruses in a like a digital system, but also in your body in an organic system. You have different. They say that your death is imminent in your life. The actual factors and tendencies and propensities and trajectory that will one day be a person's imminent fatality are attendant, and also is attendant of their life and their vitality, and some of their life and vitality wouldn't be viable without actually the seed of their own demise that prompts and spurs and gives form and contrast to their vitality. um, so I meant to say is that it's really we nothing is to be trifled with about our time and how long we get on this earth, but also we are to get past this life somehow, because we understand that it's slated to end, and the best way to do it would just be to live thoroughly, congruently, as it as you to each their own, as it suits you, as you enjoy yourself. But probably modesty goes far in making as the duration goes, the duration would be the furthest with whatever with the most um, uh, uh, discipline or appropriate modesty. Um, uh, but um, uh, but so this guy, he was very big, but I wouldn't call him just overweight or muscle bound, but just a combination. And then also, according to Osho, is like back in the day, they wouldn't have troops march over like bridges. So when you have a people, or like a lot of people, like bridges are under stress. Sometimes you don't appreciate how much stress a bridge is under. I mean, it's conveying hun- hundreds of cars within a couple minutes, thousands of cars within tens of minutes, within an hour, big cars, trucks, SUVs, people walking, big people walking, commercial grade vehicles right over. I'm in where I'm at in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, about maybe 10 years, maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago, a major these because I've made different. I've said on this channel different times that our Twin Cities exactly is beset upon two sides of the Mississippi River, the west being Minneapolis, the east being St. Paul. So a lot of people in the Twin Cities are constantly going back and forth. I'd say that more people from either one or the other city have a tendency to favor one of the other cities, where you may have actual things that are resources that would be more convenient to cross the other city, but you're accustomed to your city. But it's not that people don't cross, but you have a lot of a necessity for traffic over bridges in the Twin Cities. There's probably at least like 5 main bridges, give or take, in the main metropolitan area proper, Twin Cities proper. But one of those bridges actually fell apart. It ran spontaneously about 10, 15 years ago. I think that was like that was either the Franklin Bridge, or the is it one of the we have like a couple we have like Highway 35 and 94, and then we have like a couple like they did some enhancement to 94, where you have like some bypasses, but different iterations of 94. But it was one of those, I think it might have either been 94 or Franklin. It fell apart, and I think some people passed away when that happened. But such as bridges are always under a lot of stress, and if you have an actual entire company, like a regiment of military people walking over the bridge, that's actually a significant amount of weight. And then if they're marching in unison, if they're marching over the bridge, left, right, left, right, left, 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 right, left, right, left, left, that much of weight in unison like that, the cadence of that, but then the the tandem stress of that many footsteps, because that's some real mean stuff. You see a couple, you see men marching together. So even I have a car. I'm sitting next to a dipshit right now, right? We're just acting like dipshits, listening to things that dipshits listen to. But all of a sudden we get on a chord, like we're actually really on the same page about something together. Me and this dipshit. That's gonna have a different weight and pull. Like the mind over matter. Your mind is potent, very potent. Like a lot of time, I think that one of the sensations of riding a bicycle is actually mind over matter. A bicycle is a sensation, and a bicycle is mind over matter, because the road is matter, your body and the bicycle are matter. You're somehow upright over that. Bicycle is mind over matter. Whether barely on training wheels that are starting to actually, where you're starting to, the training wheels are becoming redundant now, and you're starting to get a little bit on two wheels while still having training wheels. A very small bike, a bigger bike, a mountain bike, a scooter, a motorcycle, an e-bike, what have you, on two wheels. It's mind over matter. How could you explain to someone how to ride a bike? Could you really explain to somebody what's happening when you ride a bike in a technical manual? You can maybe give them the right practicum, like a practice routine, to become familiar and comfortable riding a bike. But that confidence itself is the activation of mind over matter. I remember for me, there was a person I've referenced a couple of times in this video that was a salient figure in my life. They were very challenging, like our whole time growing up, to be around. But they kind of, it's strange, but the people that are the roughest, the most of there's this album by a song by Pete Rock, where he said, "If it ain't rough, it ain't right. If it ain't rough, it ain't right, kid." He would say stuff like that. But that's like a lot of the things that we grew up with, like the hard knock stuff. If it wasn't foul or egregious, it is just that simple rough stuff that kids do. It can make us stronger, I think. So I had that friend like that I got a lot stronger as a person being around him, but he wasn't really doing me a lot of favors, or pulling punches. Like if it would have came to that. But he was the first one got me off of training wheels when I was a little boy. I was probably like 4 or so. He was a couple years older than that, and I remember he was the last one to push me, because my parents were like, they knew I liked to ride, but they actually weren't really giving me the attention I needed. My own parents weren't, to become competent on training wheels, but this friend of the family was. It's like, no, 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 he need to ride on two wheels, man. No, 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 forget that. You got it right there. I just remember that sensation of getting up on two wheels from him. He was actually visually deprived. He, to this day, he's visually deprived, but he was outstanding on bikes for some reason. Like, that's another example of how bikes are mind over matter, because the greatest bike rider that I've ever met, my actual best friend in life growing up, he was severely visually deprived, and he couldn't, like, he would watch TV. He would sit right up. He would squat next to a TV to watch TV, and also play like video games like that. I don't know how things would actually appear to him, but he could like bunny hop these bikes, like damn it, over like two. He could bunny hop over crates and stuff like that. Like he could bunny hop over another damn bike, another person on a bike nearby. He could do crazy stuff on bikes, because it's exactly mind over matter. That's what he actually taught me. And I remember when I got to high school, like when I was young, I used to be like a little bit of a hothead. Like I had something of a metamorphosis in school, because when I was young, I had a little bit of a temper. I think that would have been genetic from my family is a lot like that, like on my father's side. But then also my mother's is like Irish, and they have those, what's called Irish temper. To be that's a sweeping generalization, but it's humorous. But there's some truth to in humor. There can be like tempers like on all the sides of my family. But I remember I was talking to him and about like when I got to high school, about like what I would do if somebody tested me. Like even like, because at high school there would be like some real actual badasses that were really a lot like grown men already in high school, but badasses. And I was aware of that coming into high school, and I was thinking about what I would and wouldn't do if something came to that. And he was like, "Nah, man, you can't be doing that stupid stuff like that, because it's mind over matter." That was the dopest thing he said to me in life, is that it's mind over matter. So he's saying if it had been, because he was actually also one of the more physically formidable people I've met. He was very strong. He had very strong genetic. He was strong. His father was too. Just a lot of strength, without whether or not he worked out. He was very strong.
But he was like, nah, if that was him up, he doesn't go to the same high school as me. But he's like, if that was him, he wouldn't be trying to go, he wouldn't be trying to play games with nobody. He would just be mind over matter, diffuse the situation, walk away from it. Then there would actually be some times in high school where I got close to actual confrontation, a little bit of confrontation and close to confrontation. But I was, back in those days, like early 2000s, it wasn't as ratchet as it is now with the weapons and stuff like that. But it actually was that type of smoke I was having, where I think there were some mercies that happened that it didn't go there, because there's the type of people that could have I could have shit could have got bad. But the reason I did, but it still take two. And the reason it didn't get all the way bad is, I think it's because I came across, because of that. Sometimes things that people say, it stick in the back of your mind. And he was saying like it's mind over matter. So then there would be, I got it I got into conflict in high school. And then life is such that life is collective, cooperative. So anytime that you employ violence, you're in the realm of politics. And this life, kind of like the atmosphere will check anything that moves is actually checked by the atmosphere, even what we think. I think that what we think is still a form of action, motility, because all that we would do of action and motility comes from what we think in the first place. So if all of our actions are calibrated, likely our thoughts may be calibrated and checked ever so subtly. And that might be what people get into contention about when they go to when people get when people hang themselves with their own statements, like with their own like pet theories and stuff like that, going way back. And they get into useless trouble with with professionals and stuff like that. It may be because they actually sensed some of the calibration that takes place in this life, in this existence, that baffled them, that daunted them, that confounded them, that gave them ideas. But then they didn't calibrate their statements about that, or look into it enough, or understand who they were actually interfacing with, and get into a lot of needless and sometimes fatal trouble, tragic, unfortunate circumstances based on uncalibrated statements. But I still think that things are checked and calibrated, even all that happens in the atmosphere, and including social activity, social arrangement. So if you employ violence, you may get, I think that the only thing violence does, if anything, is to buy you time, or to get away from it. It's a last resort. The only time I had ever got into physical confrontation in school, I had been uh, something I had been the first one contacted. Um, but but so I think that if you employ violence, it doesn't end there. If you employ violence, when you employ violence, either it's gonna redouble back on you, kind of like some robbers robbing a safe, and then the safe roll down and they get injured worse. Or if you get away with that, you get over on that situation, it's only going to be so long until it come back again, because either someone's going to have a problem that you injured someone that their friend that they have affinity with, or nobody sticks up for that person, but you actually get around to having some rapport and some pull based on what you did. And now somebody is jealous of that rapport and pull, or just or you're just like a challenge, because some people like challenge. So it doesn't end there with violence. So you employ violence, it only escalates, and it doesn't end with that episode until somebody humbles themselves. That's when it stops. So for me, I was the one to humble myself. But the person that would have probably been humbling me, handing my ass to me, appreciated some, because I was about books back then. I would read a lot. I'd actually, sometimes I wasn't ethical in how I would obtain learn how I wasn't always ethical when I was a young person. And they're like, damn, you like reading that much? But what do you be reading about? And I was like, I was at that time I was reading things about like self help. Like, you wouldn't I didn't actually know that I didn't, like, when you say self help now, like that has a certain uh overtone that I was so young, I didn't know how that sounds, how self help actually sounds coming out of someone's mouth. But I was actually just there'd be this book called like Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul back in the day. That actually sounded interesting to me. Something that teach you how to be humble and content. One of those books I read, it was either Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul, or one of those very basic, some of the original iterations of the popularity of self-help books, because those weren't entirely broad. They weren't as prolific as they are now. And it was saying that when a person gets angry, the reason that they get angry is because they're feeling scared. It's a loss of control, kind of like when you corner something, you corner an animal or a rodent or something, and you see the real formidableness in them because they have nothing to lose and nowhere to go. But that's similar what's happening in anger, is that you're scared, but it's also addictive because you're scared. You return you get bigger because you're scared. Now you see yourself just made someone else scared too. There's a sensation of power that comes with that, and power is very addictive. So it can also be like a habit, a tendency, a fetish about getting angry a lot. But then also it can be fear too. And when I appreciate that in that book back then, sometimes awareness of a dynamic, it changes the dynamic a lot. And that's what happened for me since that point. Like reading those books about understanding like what it is to be content and a decent person, and to manage your thoughts well, and appropriately for happy living, healthy living. I was coming across that then, but then also some of the most formidable people at my school, because I'd always be familiar with and more so of friends with a lot of formidable people, because that's kind of how my chemistry was. But that person would have been the main person to hand anyone's ass to them in the school, because that person was very physically gifted and also trained in like the some of your combat sports that are sanctioned for schools. But he actually respected that I read like that. It's interesting. I recently met another formidable person in my vicinity here in the Twin Cities. I met an actual person of a fighting pedigree from childhood. I met a person like that in life, just somewhat randomly, and struck up a conversation. And it was interesting that that person was from Asia, but they were actually having respect for my English, because you would think that most people nowadays they appreciate and they celebrate shut upness and intellectualism and English in anything that's free form but expansive. Most people can't stomach something expansive, not the least of which like prose and or intellectual ideas, things like that. But who would you imagine to be the most disciplined and the most taciturn and the most curt and succinct and lack of words would be like a fighter like that. But of all the exception goes to prove the rule. So most people can't stand anything that talks more than a couple words. Um, but yet the person that's likely to use the least of words would be an actual fighter from an authentic pedigree or background. That person might also be the one person to appreciate learning in English, because that person was from Asia, and in Asia they have a different. So Asia, they have you can't make sweeping statements without being an ass, but culturally, you could say it wouldn't be egregious to say that there's some trends of the human families in Asia. There's some trends and some strong suits around martial culture, honor, valor, uh, 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 loyalty, and also uh, um, how that all redoubles upon a person's word. You could say that all of strength rests on your will, but your will also rests and is manifest in an expression of and expressed by your statements, your speech, your what you say. So there's a correlate. So but in Asia, generally, broadly, roughly, coarsely speaking, there's a aesthetic and value around honor, valor, martial activity, if it comes to that, but then also family and learning, all that together. Um, and that's not to say that the your great Asian pedigrees are verbose or expansive necessarily, but just that they appreciate the word, the verbal form, and the power of that. There's actually nothing more powerful than a word that's meant when someone's not mincing their words and they're saying something that's authentic. When a person's mind, will, and emotions converge over their statements, that may be the most powerful thing. What's called omnipotent. Omnipotent is the word. The word is an agreement between people. Um, but So this person, this fighter that I met was, he was saying that, because I was telling, he was just saying that in Asia where they come from, they got a lot of they got enough of a lot of stuff. They got enough of fighters, they got enough of badasses, they got enough of motorcycles, they got enough of stuff like that. He was saying that, but what they don't have enough of is like learning and teaching and like people to help people like learn to speak English, or like learn things that will help them travel, or just enjoy life. Like he was saying that they don't have enough of like teachers and things that are solid around learning in English. So it was kind of like it was kind of it was kind of beautiful. And then when I said farewell to him, I only talked to him for a few minutes. He was there with his family, was like in a car, and he was exercising outside the car, which got me to strike up a conversation with him because I was it was interesting what he was doing. But then when I was leaving, he said, "It was nice to meet you." You haven't heard somebody say something like the most some things they call it trite. Like trite is the same thing as cliche, is like commonplace. Hackneyed, I think hackneyed is like things that you hear day in day out. But every once in a while people say the same thing you hear day in day out, but they actually mean it. Like one time I was on a bus and I heard someone say like take it easy, or like take care. No, I heard someone's on the bus, they're like, hey, take it easy, man. He really congruently meant take it easy, like that. That was deep. One time my grandfather told me, take care of yourself. That was one of the last things I remember my grandfather saying. It wasn't the last time I talked to him, but one of the last things I remember him saying was, take care of yourself. That really meant something, because he meant what he said to me. He meant that to me when he said that. But then this person the other day, or a couple, like about a month ago, was saying, uh, it was nice to meet you. But he wasn't like saying it flattering like that, but he was just like an actual real, like if you were to meet what it would feel like to meet a warrior, like someone who's is their mind, will, and body and speech is congruent. It's but it was kind of it was a unique experience to hear someone say nice to meet you but actually mean it. Because even when I say it like that, nice to meet you, it doesn't actually sound as um as authentic as the way that person said it. But uh um but so when we were driving on that bus like that, and then but so that's how powerful your mind is, and your word. But then also you have all that, so you have like two, a driver and a dipshit on the same accord. That's powerful. But then you got a company of men or women or both marching along a bridge. Just the potence of mind over matter, their mind together like that. But then the stress, the combined stress in unison, in cadence like that, that's more than what a bridge can handle sometimes. Because sometimes bridges will collapse at a one point, and one thing to make a bridge collapse would be cadence, marching. So we were taking that trip on that Greyhound like that. The whole time, I listened to like music for like a day straight, like 24 hours straight on that trip. A lot of us would have been bumping music, and some of the people were big, because I'm actually you may, it may not come across in the videos, but I'm a pretty large of, not, I'm not large as in like overweight, but I'm large of stature, like stand 6'4" with a healthy body weight. That's a pretty big guy. But then this guy that I was on the bus with was a really big guy. So all I said to say, it's not a surprise that the damn tire blew up. But as that guy was recruiting us, he was saying that when you become if you become a bus driver, you'll find your own form of diplomacy, because to be a bus driver is to be a diplomat. There's no being a bus driver without being a diplomat. And so for me, working in the field of a CDL, a school bus, it vastly increased my confidence. There's been different people to say. There's a book called Semi Queer. It's about queer semi drivers, but also it just talks about some of the lifestyles and the people that would find themselves attracted to, or actually have to do transportation for work, because some people are actually marginalized. But there's something about people. I'm one of these people where you tend to discover animosity and or alienation instantly, rapidly, in most venues. Try as you may, you tend to be on the outs with people in life, even as you're being authentic and congruent and honest and forthright and pleasant and friendly. You are marginalized. It's something of I can't enunciate how that some people might understand that better or worse, but there are people that are alienated by. I remember when I was a young person, one person that knew me very well. I've referenced that person on here a lot, and their sister. He was younger than me, but he was hip to he was hip to a lot of things as a young, very young. I think some of that was from his family, but also he had a talent for just appreciating people. Really knew how to approach people. Like one thing he taught me is like he taught me when you first see someone, when you first look at someone, but they didn't have an opportunity to, they didn't know, they, someone that you know, they look at you without having had a chance to anticipate you or prepare an expression or response. You'll see their actual real disposition towards you in that moment. If you come across someone and they get to seeing you before they had a chance to to know that they were going to see you like that, that first initial look on their face, that's how they really feel about you. So when I go a lot, I went to a place today, I went to a coffee shop today, and this I don't think it's healthy to do this because I think it impacts your appearance when you do this. But when I walk into this place, a coffee shop like this, near where I've resided for a long time, the look at this woman goes, like she actually like she smudged her face like she was sick of her own face like that. That's the first thing that she was. That wasn't a conscious reaction. That was a subconscious reaction to my presence walking in somewhere. A lot of people are like, oh hey, like you. It's kind of interesting if you stand by a public venue where the public are served, and you watch the distinction in reactions to people, or the greeting of the acknowledgement of people. It's really profound like that. So this girl, like this woman, she, when I walk into the coffee shop, she was like she was like trying to smudge her face off in frustration with her placement in life at that moment. And now I'm not saying that people don't have real stress and rigors at their jobs, but different people bring different things out of different people. So that's what I had essentially brought out of this woman. The first thing she, and then I was like, when she did that, because I think it's healthy to express whatever goes through your mind also. So when she did that, I was like, I spoke for her. I was like, oh damn, here he go again. I said that like to enunciate what she would be thinking like that. And like it was kind of like a little bit like some people would call that like timing and stuff like that. But she was like, she didn't actually humor to laugh at that. But I think it was actually a well placed comment, and it wasn't out of context or vain or like or rude or mocking. It was just like an actual a play a timed like it was it was a topical humor like that. But then other people walk into the same venue and they'll say like really kind of whack or like corny or just like they'll say something of humor, but they don't actually like practice a lot of humor like that. So it's just like kind of like a very like basic bland humor, but they'll be like not like that, but they actually have a real laugh. Like, so some of your reciprocity with humor, it's a deeper form. There's something deeper than just the humor that's expressed in what people, that's a really deep thing, is humor is like what's funny for one person to say and another person to say like that. But it's like I've done other videos where sometimes I think that women are helpers. So if a woman likes you, she'll help you to be cool. She'll also help you with your humor like that. If a woman is intending for you to succeed or to just be savvy in dope like that in her presence, and if not, then not. But that I had learned that from my friend like that he can peep people like that really quickly, and not quickly, but he has a knack for seeing where people are coming from. But when we were very young, he said he said you're a loner, man. He's like he was like that he said you're a loner. And I didn't, when he said that, it didn't sound cool to me, but I knew he wasn't lying, because he had already seen me in like middle school, before middle school, in middle school, and then in high school. And that whole time I'd be practicing basketball alone. Like, we lived by this school where both him and my parents worked at, and I'd always be practicing there alone. And he'd see me out sometimes by these hoops. That I go to a neighbor that had a hoop in the backyard in the garage, and I'd be putting up shots for hours in front of the neighbors. There's actually a sorority. It's like some female sororities, but they had a hoop in the back, and I lived by them. I'd be playing out there. That's why I had met him. He was taking the trash when I met him, but then a few years later than that, he was like, "You're a loner," and but that's how my life had been like that. But uh, um, but with the CDL is that it brings out your diplomacy. So there's no being a so the CDL, it brings out your ability to multitask, like so you can monitor conversations and activity while driving. You can engage students verbally where appropriate, because that's part of managing students or just managing passengers, is the appropriate engagement. And it's not all just authority, because if it's authority, the authority is more of an effect than a reality, because your real authority is you take them, you take your passengers where they need to go. If you make any mistake along the way or you do something out of pocket, that's your ass. But then also, if they get themselves hurt or in trouble under your watch, that's also your ass. So the most you can do is do what you're told, follow the directive of delivering the passengers. Um, hope, uh, uh, hope that they respect you enough to allow themselves to be transported somewhere safely. And then if worst comes to worst, you can write a little note about somebody, like you can put something in, you can write a report if something got out of hand. And that report may or may not be acknowledged, may or may not be passed on to that passenger and or that passenger's family, whatnot. But it doesn't necessarily serve them or you to write something down ad nauseum like that, except for like really heinous situations where, if it's that heinous of a situation, the powers that be were going to find out about it one way or another. But all I meant to say is that you don't have as much authority as a driver as you might think. Like, I think sometimes back in the day, something egregious that bus drivers would do. This is you know damn well not to do this now, but back in the day they had some bad some questionable practices, like, as an industry, and bus drivers would slam on the brakes, like, to get the students to, like, pay attention. I never did that or thought about that or thought that that was even. I never actually understood how you could think that that would be appropriate to do that. But some bus drivers would used to, like, slam on the brakes to get passengers' attention, and that actually shows something of how futile authority is for a lot of authority figures. A lot of authority, I would imagine, even some of our law enforcement and military, it's actually more of an effect in a theater, in a charade, than it is. I mean, it's a real life, costly, life and death charade in theater, but it's still charade in theater. And if it actually really got to that point of being of tit for tat, or like intelligent opposition to what the powers that be, um, they would have to either, one, just make an example. Or I'm not saying law enforcement and military can't do wicked, deadly shit to have everybody on their hands and knees. I'm not saying that. However, they get by a lot more with their image and I think that's also why sometimes police have their uniforms in such crisp. So you got every life is full of dipshits. Taxpayers are largely dipshits, but on a daily basis, if you were to follow them around, they pay for the police, who may also be dipshits in their personal life, and they're putting their life on their line for all of us dipshits. But damn it, they got that uniform crispy like that. Part of that is just the appearance of power is a lot, the probably the larger part of power, and it's also the same like that with authority as a bus driver, school bus driver. So the or metro, but the what goes further than authority in itself is the potential for authority, but more so of, like, enlightenment, humor, pleasantness, a mutual respect that goes way further than authority. Authority is like a, and I'd be want to say the same is also true of, like, violence and self-defense, is that it goes further as a potential and as an appearance than a reality. And as a reality, it serves next to little to nothing, as does authority. Because if you're having to rely on your authority, somewhere or another you failed in your diplomacy. If you're having to rely on violence, somewhere or another you failed in your diplomacy and or planning and situational awareness. But the bus driving, it does actually broaden your mind socially, and with confidence and multitasking. And in that book, the reason I referenced that book, Semi Queer, is not only were they talking about marginal people that would find themselves compelled or interested in being commercial drivers, but also they say that when you drive a vehicle as large as a commercial vehicle, something about that amount of force and weight, but also responsibility and challenge and nuance and attention to detail, it changes something about your own sensation of your body and your mind and your confidence. But I think that was true as a school bus driver. But then on top of that, to have the actual engagement of the students, and then the students' lives, livelihood and trust in you, and also their family trust in you, the community trust in you, the company trust in you, the school board trust in you, the taxpayer trust in you. That's quite a bit um, that you're endowed with, or that you're that's actually some of the most. I To me, I thought that much respect, that much trust, not necessarily outright respect and deference, but just that amount of trust is to me, that's near about like a doctor. Because like what I was saying, that person I met from Asia, they say that in some parts of Asia, they revere teachers more than doctors. They don't not revere doctors, but a teacher is even greater than a doctor, because the doctor helps when things break down, but the teacher is really the future of the teacher leads the future, which is the pupils, to the future, which is the pupils. But then you could say that it may be similar with like a school bus driver, where you have, so the teacher is teaching, the teacher has the moral future of the students, the academic future, the professional future of the students, their effectiveness to be autonomous and independent, mutually dependent, cooperate as citizens. They have their future as decision making judgment goes. But the school bus driver has their actual vitality, living person life in their hands. The student does as much as a teacher. And I don't even think a teacher necessarily has 70 pupils on their hands at one time, but a driver has that many students on their hands at one time, and their self on their hands at one time. And then to mitigate and manage traffic and weather conditions, and the cooperation of dispatch and other bus drivers in schools and parking lots, and animals, and egregious things. And it's quite a bit that a bus driver is trusted with, and is managing, but such that it also changes some things of the mind, like that, where like you can practice to do anything, but if you have a real enough situation, you're gonna figure things on the fly when you have no other recourse, such as when you're on the road now, you're on the highway now, so you're on the highway with 70 children or 70 students, pupils on your hands. Yeah, if worse came to worse, you could pull over and you could call for assistance. But even that would take some managing too. So now that you're on your wings, you're on your own devices, it's real now, like that. And um there's no shortcuts or kidding with stuff like that. There's no kidding around with 70 pupils on your hands. So you will spontaneously, uh it's kind of like a lot of people think that they're not fit, but the right fire under them or upon them, and now they're fit because it's when you have to choose between um a way and no way, uh a lawnmower and getting off the grass. You find a way to get off the grass. So one of the skills that blossom was the multitasking as a school bus driver, and also some of the confidence, rapport, and tact around socializing of people of all walks of life. Because before that role, I had worked with some children, and a lot of elderly and disabled, but not that many. That I would say the school bus was a broadest range of managing people in the public. So once I had first been a PCA, but once I did the school bus, I felt like I was confident with people from nearly all walks of life. Um, and so but so just to say that when I do this video, like traveling in the car like that, I'm actually familiar with being able to manage a vehicle while also engage, while also verbalizing. But that hadn't been the same before I became a CDL. Because like before I became a CDL, like I would drive alone for a long time. Like I would drive like deliveries, like I did like pizza delivery in some of the rough areas, what's called rough areas of St. Paul, some of the areas of St. Paul that have a reputation, like downtown, and then like towards all these areas of St. Paul, including downtown. I would do that delivery like in the off hours, ungodly hours of the night, and similar like when I'm making this video right now. And but I would do so like in a stick shift, and at that time I wouldn't listen to music because I had very tight instincts and protocols about safety even before I became a professional driver, such that I didn't want to listen to music for distraction. So I'd be delivering pizzas in the what's called the hood at like now I sound like I'm flexing when I say that. I don't mean to sound like that sound I don't mean to sound egregious like that, but because that's just neighborhoods where people live at. But I would be doing a lot of deliveries in the middle of the night in dead silence in a stick shift like that, and I was familiar with that. But then after that, a few times I have some actual passengers, and I wasn't actually used to having passengers because I'd always be on my own. So it's a step up to go from you first you convey yourself in a personal vehicle. That's one level of skill. Then you entertain passengers in a personal vehicle. That's another skill. It's awkward at first if you're used to conveying yourself, but you can become used to it. And then now that's that. Then you go from there to becoming. Now for me, I first became a school bus driver with like a Type 3 van that's like only up to about 8 passengers, I think, including the driver. So that's another tier like that. Then I became a CDL, but my first job as a CDL was a small bus. So it's again like similar to that Type 3 van. Then I got into a big bus, but it was my first assignment was over yonder, like in another state, and where I was at, I only had one student. So I had a big old bus for a 2 week stint, but I only had one passenger that would show up on that route. Then I got to back to where I was trained at, and I started having full buses of people, and it was very difficult at first. Not difficult, but just new. I didn't know what the hell I was doing as the management goes. Even with the training, you have something you really have to learn on the job. But then after doing it 1, 2, 3, 4 school seasons, then you can become acclimated to it. And so that's where I was saying is that I'm actually trained to make these videos driving like this. But I had actually had a different idea that I want to do this video, but I'm gonna do it from a better position because I'm making this on the street at night and it's not good to go like that. But I'm gonna reconvene with part 2 of this video. Peace.